Hello and welcome to our video discussion series EduTalks for Online Teaching. Thank you for watching us and subscribe to our channel. You can press the bell button to get notified of our next episode. Hello, Eva. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
My name is Teodora. Please introduce yourself.
Yes, so my name is Eva Bošković. I've been working as a teacher of English and German for 5 years in an online setting. I love my job. I love working with people, just, having these meaningful relationships and being, let's say, a tool for someone to get new knowledges, new skills, to learn about the world.
What would you like to share as far as either tips and tricks or advice for our viewers as far as the benefits of online teaching? How do you see it?
Yeah, so for me, it was a decision that I made on my own because I wanted the flexibility and the mobility. At the time when I started my company, my school, I was doing a backpacking trip across Asia, and then I needed to get some, funds, get some money to be able to continue with my traveling. And that's when I started doing this online.
And still, I hear a lot of educators talking about how to engage in an online setting. The students where sometimes they don't even see their faces, they don't know if they're engaged even ahead of times, but maybe you also have experience in that and you want to share with the
Um,
educators.
I think that maybe technology wise, it's excellent to use breakout rooms in classes because those are the ones that you can really put students in groups. And then I think they will be more prone to speaking and to just participating in the lesson if there are less of them and if they have to do it. Now, the problem with it is that you can't be in 5 different breakout rooms at the same time. So you have to regularly check on every single one of them. But, there are many things that can be done. Ask them questions and ask them personally. You don't ask a question and say, okay, so what is, I don't know, what's the weather like today, and then just wait for someone to say something. You have to ask them, okay, Eva, what's the weather like today? And then they will probably answer. So these are just some of the things that you have to navigate through to help yourself in the lesson, because sometimes the students just think that they're here to just listen, and then if they don't turn their cameras on, they can do whatever they want actually.
Yes, yes. I also heard statistics. I don't know who does these statistics, honestly, but if you want to keep learners engaged, you have to change the activities every 4 minutes.
Yes, that's exactly what we do, because our activities are very short, but I think quite powerful. And then there would always be some, I don't know, they have a listening activity, and then they're listening to the audio file for, let's say, 2 or 3 minutes if they're at a higher level. Usually if they are at lower levels, these audios are shorter. Then when they listen, they would give us the answers to their tasks, but then we wouldn't go to the second listening immediately. We would start the talk about what we have just heard, just so that they can switch from it for a little bit, and then we go back to the next part of the task. This is, I think, the just I don't know, methodology behind it. You just have to know how to work in the class that's very interactive, so that they don't just sit and listen to you. Sometimes when things do get repetitive, it's good to include more interactive content. As I said, those games or other digital tools. They can even maybe go outside of the classroom and use a link to another site where they have to maybe find something. Scavenger hunts are amazing for that. So, you know how you would do a scavenger hunt in a classroom? We would do it at the beginning of each semester when the students get their books. I would do a scavenger hunt activity where they would have to find different things in the book, and then they would just get acquainted with the book. They would know what they can expect and where they can find certain things. I do that online as well. So I give them a scavenger hunt activity for a different topic, and then they have to go out and click on different links and find things to get the answers, and then we discuss it later on. So don't think that you have to stay within the frame of the tool that you're using to have this video call and this type of communication. Let them use the technology that they have. Don't just make them be a passive listener. They have to be an active participant. We have seen some research that says that the learners are still retaining more information, and they're learning better when they use textbooks, printed versions of textbooks. All of our students get the printed version to have on their desk while we're doing the class, but they can see and follow everything on the screen as well. Now, the connection between the hand and the brain when we are writing, I mean pen and paper, is much stronger for these cognitive connections than just typing and looking at the screen. So maybe having some kind of a combination of these two things is great. Especially if you teach languages for listening activities, it's sometimes hard to look up and down if you want to make notes. So it's good for them to look, let's say, down on their textbook and do the listening task while only focusing on what they can hear without moving their head too much. I don't know, these are some practical things that can maybe help, but I think that
Exactly.
our goal is to help them learn as much as possible. And these are just little tips and tricks that maybe I found in this past 5 years that work the best.
Thank you very much. And as a coach, what I'm also hearing is that you're able to involve every learner with all of their senses, meaning some of the learners are visual, some are auditory, some are more kinesthetic. And just
Exactly.
knowing as an online tutor, online teacher, knowing how the brain works, how you just mentioned how those neural connections are formed, you then know how to best, which tool to use, how to best engage the learners so that all of them are engaged.
Exactly.
And thinking of even more tips and tricks, if you are ready, would you demonstrate something that you like using, like activities you use?
Yes. So for some of the activities that that you can do in class, which are really fun, let's say games, you put them into teams, and then they have to do some kind of an activity. I'll give you an example of the game called Taboo. It's a game that we love to use in our classes. It can be adapted to suit different levels of students. But what we love about it is that it gets them to speak and it gets them to laugh, and then they love it. So the game is basically a game where you get a word, you have to explain the meaning of the word to other students, but without saying other words that are closely connected to it. So let's say if you have the word house, you can't say home or live or door or window or something that's really closely connected to it. Now, we would usually in classes, with in-person classes, you would play it with cards. They get a word and they get the words that they cannot use. And I know that again, with what I've said before, some teachers might think, oh, I just want to use the cards in a digital version. Of course you can do that, but that's a lot of work. And sometimes it's really important to use those visual cues. But here, the most important thing is that they can see the word. And I would just use the chat option. Let's say here, I would just send the special word that a student has to explain directly to that student so that the other uh, people can't see it. And then the person would explain it, and that would be it. So just make it simple for yourself. Don't complicate things if you don't have to, because there are so many things to grasp when it comes to online teaching when you first start doing it. Later on, maybe you'll have time and then you'll make beautiful cards and then you'll send each of them to each of the students and do something like that. But you can start with just simple chat and it works wonders. I know that one other thing that's a big problem for many teachers is how to do tests and how to test the students' knowledge. And what we do is we use Google Forms, which is very easy to use. It's free and it works great because it's simple for the students as well, if you prepare it correctly. I'll just share my screen. As you can see, this test has 4 parts. So we are checking the 4 skills that are checked with language. So it's listening and reading and speaking and writing. You can put pictures here and then they can use different kinds of, different types of these tasks. You can also put some audio files here so that they can choose which is which where. And then another student, if you just click on the Google Forms when you're making the quiz, there is an option to click where you set to mix the order of the questions. Another students would have the same questions, but not in the same order.
Yeah.
That's how I would do it. We also have them share their screens while they're doing the tasks, and we also monitor how much they move around, so that so that everything is done properly. But I think this kind of checking is much better than maybe sending them a PDF. Then they can do it by their hands, and then they take a picture of it. They send it back to you. It's much harder to correct it as well, because either you have to print it out, or if you have to make some notes, then it's much harder. So this way, you can also put you can also make it automatic to grade these kinds of tests. So it really makes your life easier. It takes a bit of time to put it all in, but then it's really easy when you start implementing it.
If you enjoyed the interview with Eva Bošković from Aeria, you can like us. You can leave a comment below. If you would like to suggest an educator that I invite for the EduTalks next episodes, you're welcome to do so. If you yourself would like to join as a guest and be interviewed for EduTalks, send us an email at info@vedemo.com. Follow us on social media and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. See you in the next episode.